Thank you. Welcome to the Wednesday, February 20th, 2019 meeting of the Wareham Conservation Commission. Kenny, roll call, please.
Members present: Joe Leggett, myself, Ken Baptiste, Chair Sandy Slavin, Rob Lassen, Jim Smith, and David Pichette, the agent.
Thank you. We have minutes.
Okay, I got it right.
We have minutes. They were mailed October 3rd, 2018. Anybody have any comments on them?
No. Motion approved.
I have a motion to approve.
Second.
I have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Who was here?
Doesn't matter.
Kenny, you were not here. Mr. Smith, you were not here.
Yep.
So we're 302. I will. Better? Yeah. Continued hearings, the Borrego Solar Systems, please come forward and identify yourself for that project.
How are you?
Hi, Stacy Minahan with Beals and Thomas, here with Zach Farkas from Borrego.
Good evening, everyone.
I did bring revised plans.
Okay. Little ones.
Continued.
You want to share?
I like the little ones.
Small ones?
Oh, I love a small one, yeah.
Mr. Bichette, please.
The project site is 299 Farm to Market Road, and the project involves the installation of a solar array within the buffer zone to bordering vegetated wetland into an inland bank. A 3.5 megawatt solar array is proposed within the buffer zone to existing cranberry bogs. The clearing work for the project within the buffer zone had already been done at the site without an order of conditions, as we had talked about at the last meeting. So again, the clearing work has already been completed. And at the last meeting, the plan did show some work within the 50-foot no activity zone, so we had asked for that to be revised, which I'm assuming the revised plan makes some of those changes. The other thing was that the town's engineer was going to be reviewing this. I'm not sure if that's been completed yet or not. I have not seen anything, so I don't really have any further questions on this, anything different than what we had at the last meeting. So again, I'd have to recommend a continuance until we get the comments from the town's engineer on the project.
Zach, Stacy, anything you'd like to add?
No, we did revise the plans to pull the project out of the 50-foot no-touch, which was reflected there. We'll be providing these plans tomorrow, likely to the planning board and the peer reviewer, who I think will then conduct his review and proceed from there.
Yeah, our hope was to come tonight, just drop off the updated plans if you guys had any questions, but to confirm, as Dave said, that we've shifted the entire site north-northeast. Basically, the footprint itself remains about the same, but there is no work within the 50-foot, with the exception of the medium voltage trench that runs on the upland side of the bog roads to the point of interconnection. So everything that we took as feedback from Dave during the site walk and from this board at the last hearing was incorporated into the plans, and it's our hope that after a clean peer review, we'll be ready to move forward.
Any questions on the board?
No questions?
Any questions in the audience? I'm seeing none, so we hope to have an answer back to us by,
Is
6th?
the 6th? Okay.
The next meeting is the 6th of March. Do you think that's going to work? Or you're not obviously sure until he does the review?
Right. I mean, I think we'd prefer to continue to that date, and if the review's not done by then, I can coordinate with you for a continuance, Dave, but,
Sure.
okay.
Okay, make a motion to continue to March 6th.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor? Opposed, abstained? We're continued until March 6th.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
The next hearing we have is Ken Nelligan. They've requested a continuance until 3/20. Is there anybody here for that particular project? Seeing none?
Motion continue to March 20th?
20th. And a second, so I have a motion and a second to continue until March 20th. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? We're gone to 3:20. The next hearing we have is a Gary Osmond. The request, anybody here for that particular project? That was requested that it be continued until April 17.
So moved.
I have a motion. I have a motion.
Second.
I have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained? Osmond is continued until April 17. Oh, my bag's not going to get any lighter. Next on the agenda is the South Coast Hospital Group. Anybody here for that project? They have requested a continuance until March 20th.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion, I have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained? So South Coast has here until the agenda for 3:20. The next hearing is for Mercy's Balm. Anybody here for that project? Would you believe they want a continuance until March 6th?
So moved.
I have a motion.
Second.
I have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained? Continued until March 6th. We have, hearings cannot start until 7:15. So is there anything, Mr. Pichette, you'd like to cover on the enforcement orders between now and 7:15?
Not really. I don't have any new information that's come in on any of these. They were just left on the agenda in case any commission members had questions or had gone to the sites and wanted to comment. But I don't have anything further on that.
Well, needless to say, we moved that quicker than I expected. Anybody interested in going to the MACC annual conference? Guess not. Can't start a hearing. I wonder if Mr. White would be willing to turn the tape off for 5 minutes. Make a motion to adjourn until 7:15?
So moved.
All right, so Mr. White? Thank you. We are going to reconvene the Wareham Conservation Commission meeting of Wednesday, February 2015 at 7:15. So we can now take our public hearings. Mr. Smith, first
Okay.
one.
Notice of public hearing. Pursuant to the provisions of the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Wareham Wetland Protected Bylaw, Division 6, a public hearing will be held in room 230, Wareham Multi-Service Center, 48 Marion Road, Wareham, Massachusetts, on Wednesday, February 20, 2019, at 7:15 p.m. On the request for determination of applicability for Joseph and Carrie Bombardier, 458 Bark Street, Swansea, Massachusetts, to demolish an existing dwelling and construct a new dwelling located on the Assessors Map 53, lots 119, 121, and 123, 25 McKinley Street, Wareham,
So
Massachusetts.
big of a lot.
Anybody here for this hearing? Please come forward and identify yourselves. Do you have the green cards?
Two lots
Okay.
combined.
Three.
Three.
And do you have the green cards?
The green card?
The notifiers, notifying your abutters?
I have the ones that were sent, but I haven't got
We
them
don't have
back.
any of them back yet.
All right, well, we'll take what you have there.
There's 4 abutters. I have notified them all personally, but one of them is our in-laws, so.
They
You
better
ta-
not protest.
How long ago was
Yeah.
were they mailed?
I was kind
Yeah,
of,
we just
late.
mailed them, so,
Yeah.
yeah.
I didn't expect, we
we
just
were-
got our notification Friday. I wasn't expecting
So
it to happen
we
so
will,
fast.
we will have to continue the hearing until,
Gotcha.
for them, but identify yourselves, please.
I'm Joe Bombardier.
And
This is
I'm
my wife, Carrie.
Carrie Bombardier.
Okay, so again, the site is at 25 McKinley Street in the Briarwood area. The project involves the demolition of an existing dwelling and the reconstruction of a new dwelling within a coastal flood zone. The existing 21 by 37-foot dwelling is to be removed, and a new 28 by 45-foot dwelling is proposed, and this is within coastal flood zone AE elevation 15. The project is not in the buffer zone to any other resource areas. There's no significant grade changes proposed, and this home will be serviced by town water and sewer. I really didn't have any problems with the project, but based on the abutter notification issue, then I'd recommend a continuance to the next meeting.
Is there anything you'd like to add?
No, we should have them back by then.
Hopefully.
Is, any questions on the board?
Nope.
Anybody
question.
else would like to speak to this particular hearing? Seeing none, I'll take a motion to continue this until 3/6.
So moved.
I have a motion.
Second.
I hear a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained. We'll see you back in 2 weeks.
Okay,
2
thank
weeks.
Your
you.
Same
green
time.
cards, yes.
Same place, same time.
And you will not have to wait until 7:15.
Yes, we'll be here at 7.
Okay,
Okay.
all right, thank you.
Thank you.
Next, please.
Notice of public hearing. Pursuant to the provisions of the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Wareham Wetland Protective Bylaw, Division 6, a public hearing will be held in room 320, Wareham Multi-Service Center, 48 Marion Road, Wareham, on Wednesday, February 20th, 2019, at 7:15, on the amended order of conditions for Darrell Roberts and Amy Schwarzenfire, care of J.C. Engineering, 2854 Cranberry Highway, East Wareham, Massachusetts.
Please come forward and identify yourselves for the record.
Mike Spencer with JC Engineering.
Hey. I guess he knows where I was gonna ask next. Okay, Mr. Bichette will read to the article, to the project.
Big one, huh?
That's the one you want to look at. That's the new plan, and that's the original. See the difference.
Here's the original.
So the project site again is 18 Arlington Road, and this request is to amend an order of conditions to allow for plan changes to the originally approved plans. The original approval was for the demolition of an existing dwelling and also a separate garage apartment building, and then the construction of a new dwelling, garage, an in-ground swimming pool, and this is in the buffer zone to a coastal bank, salt marsh, and within a coastal flood zone. The previously approved plan proposed 2 buildings to be removed and then 1 new dwelling to be constructed in its place. The proposed revision shows that only one of the original structures is to be removed, and leaving the other structure to be utilized as a future pool house for the in-ground pool. A new 32 by 42 foot, 3-bedroom house with a garage is proposed in the general location of the other existing structure that's proposed to be removed on this revised plan. The in-ground pool is also still proposed, but has been relocated as shown on the revised plan. The proposed limit of work is not increased based on the proposed changes. The proposed septic system is designed to accommodate both the new house and the existing dwelling. I just had one question about the driveway. Is that going to be a pervious material? The overall disturbance of this project is actually significantly reduced as a result of the plan change, so I would recommend the issuance of the amended order of conditions to approve the revised plan with the same conditions as the original. But again, I just had a question on the driveway.
As of right now, we were proposing the driveway to be impervious. Whether or not it was going to be pavement, concrete, I don't know, but it was going to be intended to be an impervious driveway. And I do also want to add that the limit of work, like Dave was saying, did reduce in size, and I do have a new square footage of land area to provide the commission so that it can go into the new amended order of conditions.
In terms of the driveway, if that is going to be impervious, where is that going to end up pushing water? Because I don't think they have a paved driveway at the moment. And that's a pretty good sized area, and the road in front of there, I believe, is
It's
just
dirt.
a dirt road,
Mhm.
so.
It was going to be discharged right onto the roadways. So if the commission would prefer it to be a pervious driveway, then we can certainly include that in the order of conditions.
Yeah, I think it should either be that, or if it's gonna wanna be paved, then there would have to be some sort of structure to accommodate the runoff from it.
Could we make that a condition in the approval, whether or not, if the owner definitely wants to make it a impervious driveway, then we'll come up with some type of maybe subsurface drainage system, some type of system to accommodate that drainage, instead of going into the roadway, and we can consult with Dave on that.
Okay.
Would the commission wanna see that first before making a final decision, or get an answer on that one way or the other?
I would like to have an
Probably.
answer first before we decide if they choose. My opinion is that I would prefer it to be a pervious driveway where it has been right along. And if they choose to not, then let them come back with another plan showing us where that runoff will go to, because it can't go on the dirt road.
I like that option.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Let-
We can make it a condition that it's a pervious driveway, and if the owner decides that he wants to make it impervious,
You come back
we'll
with
have to
an...
come back in front of the board,
with
sure.
Any questions on the board?
No, that covers it.
No questions.
Anybody in the audience wants to speak to or for this particular project? So the recommendation is that we do a continuance until we get a response from the homeowner.
No, what I'm saying is I'd like to go forward with closing it out, making it a condition of the approval that we provide a pervious driveway.
Okay?
If for some reason that the applicant does not wish to have a pervious driveway, and he really wants an impervious driveway, we'll have to come back in front of the commission.
With another amended order?
Amended
With
order.
another amended
Correct.
order.
Correct.
That sounds even better to me.
Okay?
Yeah.
So then the recommendation is that we close the hearing with the modification to a pervious driveway, and if that's not what he wants, you'll come back with a new amended
Absolutely, yep.
order, amended notice of intent, whatever they call this thing. Amended order of conditions, I'll get the words right. So, anything else? Someone make a motion, please.
Okay, make a motion that we grant the amended order of conditions with one
Well,
stipulation.
first we need to close the hearing.
Motion to close.
I have a motion to close.
Second.
I have a second. All in favor of closing the hearing? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Okay.
the one down
Now,
my
Joe,
side.
you're up.
Now you can go.
No, you can go now.
No, you can do it.
Let's not fight.
Okay, make a motion that we allow the amended order of conditions with the stipulation that the driveway shall be made a pervious surface material.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
In favor? Opposed? Abstained? Please, before you do anything, speak to Mr. Bichette about what your homeowner wants to do, and don't do anything until you also see Mr. Bichette.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next hearing, please.
Notice of public hearing pursuant to the provisions of the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Wareham Wetland Protected Bylaw, Division 6. A public hearing will be held in room 320, Wareham Multi-Service Center, 48 Marion Road, Wareham, on Wednesday, February 20th, 2019, at 7:15 p.m. On the notice of intent for Russell Motto, care of J.C. Engineering, 2854 Cranberry Highway, East Wareham, Massachusetts, to construct a new dwelling, septic system, grading, and associated utilities located on Assessors Map 9, Lot E2, 71 Onset Avenue, Onset, Massachusetts.
Thank you. Is there anybody here for this hearing? They have requested a continuance until March 6th.
We'll move.
I have a motion.
Second?
I hear a second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? We're continued until the 6th. Next one, please.
Notice of public hearing pursuant to the provisions of the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Wareham Wetland Protected Bylaw, Division 6. A public hearing will be held in room 320, Wareham Multi-Service Center, 48 Marion Road, Wareham, Massachusetts, on Wednesday, February 20th, 2019, at 7:15 p.m. On the notice intent for the town of Wareham, care of Tennyson Environmental Consultants, LLC, 11 South Park Avenue, Plymouth, Massachusetts, for the replacement of a bridge, the Elm Street Bridge, located on Assessors Map 132, lot not applicable, Elm Street Bridge, Wareham, Massachusetts.
Thank you. Come forward and identify yourselves for the record, please.
Hello, I'm Garrett Tunison from Tunison Environmental Consultants. I'm Garrett Tunison from Tunison Environmental Consultants.
Thank you.
In front of me and go through this.
Yeah.
This is not how to make
I'm
friends.
gonna try to, we can, because it's not all those pages we're interested in.
No.
Okay. We have the green cards. They're all from the town of Wareham. Oh, no, they would be the company store.
Is too far away?
That's fine. So, Mr. Bichette will read to the project, and then here you'll have your chance. What page should we start on? What page should we start on?
I'm gonna use, which one is this? This is the blown up version of the bridge. So I'm not certain which sheet this is. It is sheet 5 and 10. I'm using the curved tile plan because it's
Next
blown
one,
up.
that's,
It's a little easier to see.
That's 4 of 10. Just let us get to the page. Okay. Mr. Bichette, you're up.
The project site here is the Elm Street Bridge by Tremont Nail, and the project involves the replacement of the existing bridge structure, and this is within riverfront area of the Wankinko River, inland bank, coastal flood zone and an anadromous and catadromous fish run. The existing bridge structure, which is approximately 16 by 39 feet, is to be removed and replaced with a new bridge structure in the same general footprint. New sidewalks and utility lines would be incorporated into the new structure. There will be no net increase in disturbed area for the project. Because of the fact that it's an anadromous and catadromous fish run, the Mass Division of Marine Fisheries has required a time of year restriction for work on this site, and that those restrictions are between February 1st to June 30th, and then again from September 1st to November 15th. There may need to be some work done to the granite supports, but the extent of that work, if any, would not be 100% understood until the existing bridge structure is removed. There's a small barge that would be used under the bridge span during the removal of the structure. Debris booms would also be placed in the water at the upstream and downstream sides of the work. Mulch-filled filter tubes would be placed for erosion control along the edges of the project. There are some sections of the existing granite block, the first layer of stone or so, that will be removed, and there will be some concrete placed there to support the new structure, and also some railings that have to be installed. We did get a DEP file number for the project, and as I mentioned, we did also get comments from the Mass Division of Marine Fisheries describing their concerns and the issues with the time of year restrictions. Based on what's been submitted, I would recommend the issuance of the order of conditions with the standard conditions and the added conditions of the time of year restrictions from the Mass Division of Marine Fisheries, and that if there is any significant work that needs to be done to the granite wall supports that is not described in this notice of intent, that work would have to be re-reviewed by and approved by the commission prior to that work going forward.
Any comments on it, please?
Actually, I was going to open up and give a presentation, but I think David covered pretty much everything. The greatest concern would be the siltation curtain that's up here. So, and also there's one below. Those would be the greatest concern as far as impact to the stream or ecosystem. But it would be only for a short duration, because the work time would have to fall after the first TOI, time of year restriction, which would occur after June 30th. So the removal of the bridge would happen between June 30th and September 1st, and they're hoping to get the decking up so that basically the superstructure would be in place, so they'd just be working above, so there would be no impact at all. The base would actually, the superstructure would be in. So that's the goal. So I don't really foresee any issue, and the majority of the fish will be coming downstream, the young of the year, YOY, of the elocids or river herring, and that should happen towards the latter part of the summer. So they usually come down with the first flush of a large rainstorm. So I don't foresee any issues. If they were held up, they can be, it would only be the curtain that would be there for a short period of time, then they can come down immediately thereafter. So I think overall there really aren't any significant impacts. And the one area that still is not certain would be the bridge itself as far as the structure. They have to basically, this portion of the bridge, they're going to take a look at, see if it's secure, and a couple of these areas do have to come out where the superstructure goes in place, but that would be done. They're going to have a small little boat where you can wade in and just climb up with a little step ladder. It should be during low flow during the summer, so it shouldn't be a big deal. But that's stuff that they're just going to check, and they may not need to even modify. So that's really it. I don't foresee any significant impacts from what they're proposing, unless there's something significantly structurally wrong with the bridge, and no one has really, from what they've looked at, they haven't found any issues. So that's pretty much it. Does anyone have any questions?
Yes, from the board.
This is not going to affect the actual dam, the gates?
No.
Is the pond going to be lowered?
No.
Will you redirect water into the spillway, the other spillway?
It's not proposed.
So you're going to be working under that bridge with that water flow?
They were going to go, they would go under and check. What they were going to do is set up also a small little curtain mesh just below the actual decking of the bridge. So if anything did fall, it'd fall on the curtain. Wouldn't even go in the stream.
So this is the area that's underneath the little wooden boardwalk that's there? If I'm thinking,
Yes.
I'm trying to picture it, it's along,
Yes,
there's two spillways.
yes, it's
One
not,
has the fish ladder on it, the other one is
Yes.
closer to the factory and runs heavier than this one.
yes, it's not the one that runs heavier, it is the one with the fishway. And it basically, there's no increase in impervious area either. There's really no, the bridge is actually going to be slightly smaller, and the sidewalks are going to be slightly increased, and there's no change in the overall footprint that's existing.
So the existing roadway will be removed?
Yes, the superstructure will be removed.
So that asphalt and stuff like that, that's all cracked, will go?
It's all going to go, yes. The
So-
proposed,
Just
there's,
in that section that's
Just in
shown.
that section, so
Yes.
we're just beyond, right now, there is a barrier preventing to going on Elm Street. So this is, where's the barrier on that?
it's beyond the actual image. I'm using the blown up.
Yep,
And the reason why I'm doing this is some of the roadway would be cut here. It's just the area right around, this area where the blue lines are, that's the stream. The river flowing out of the pond, here's the pond. So basically, this is the bridge, that's the footprint of the bridge, and this area is the sidewalk and the actual roadway here, the sidewalk and the actual roadway here, that would be removed. It's just in this small area here. So they're going to take the bridge out and the superstructure, they're going to grind the surface down, take the bridge out, and then they're going to replace the bridge and then repave.
yes. So where the barrier exists right now, that will have to be moved further down Elm Street?
When you're talking about the large wooden barriers?
Yes,
Those will come out eventually.
well, during the work,
During construction, that's a good question.
because I'm trying to figure it, I'm trying to figure where that end of the work is compared to where we currently have a fence preventing vehicle access to Elm Street. I think I've seen it someplace. Here, see, the end of Elm Street by the school, by the road that goes down to the little person's school there.
Yeah, they may have to move that, because I think it's just,
It's in the middle of the work.
Yes, so I'm sure they'll put up temporary barrels and have it barricaded off at night, so no one will be able to get down there while they're doing work.
Is the intention to turn this into a vehicle?
Yes, they're restoring what was there previously, and they're making improvements for pedestrians and handicap.
So no other work, you're only talking to us because this is over the water?
Correct.
So, but will any other work be done on Elm Street?
It's over the water, and it's also within the 100-foot buffer zone
Yes.
and the riverfront.
What about the rest of Elm Street?
Not-
That's all
not-
cracked and whatever, and
nothing's proposed. with that
nothing's
set,
proposed, just over that one spillway. Oh, sorry.
So, yes, it would, the project consists of the area of the existing bridge, the roadway on top of the bridge, a small portion of roadway on either side of the bridge, and the existing sidewalk, which a significant portion of it right now, at least over the bridge, is wooden. So those would be replaced with a new sidewalk, and this one will be constructed so that it is handicap accessible.
Okay, And that sidewalk, which is currently wooden, would that be extended down to the end of the effort to redo Elm Street, as opposed to right now it ends right at the bridge?
Yes, on the plan, it shows,
I'm sorry, I see a paved walkway going
Yes.
quite a bit down.
yes. So it reconnects what's there, but it also makes that area handicap accessible, so someone can get on it, that, if they were in a wheelchair, which right now it would be
If they could have a place
very
to
difficult.
park.
Yes. Yes.
All right. Is anybody in the audience would like to ask questions on this particular project?
I have a question.
Please come forward and identify yourselves, and one individual.
Yeah, I'm just one.
Yeah.
I'm Elizabeth Sullen. I have a question.
You'll come
about-
forward and sit down so you can be at the microphone.
Well, I was gonna try and go look at it, because I can't see it.
Okay.
And you don't have it, right?
No,
I was just
sorry.
looking at the scope of work, because the first flume is right at the end of the bridge, so this is the scope of work?
No.
No, it's the area, do you see the patch, if you move your hand to the, yep, right in there, do you see where there's a dark black line over the road? It's yes, right up through there, it's a little further out to your left. Yep, see that black line just a little further, right there?
That's the center of the road.
Yep, and that's, if you follow the center line further from that
Right
left
there.
point. Yes.
Stop there.
So that's one extent of the project. And if you continue to the right, continue further along to the right,
Keep going.
keep going, go up.
Stop.
That's the furthest, that's the other extent of the project area.
So the children's place is down here?
Yes,
Sorry, I'm just trying, there's Swan Lane?
yes.
Okay, so this section of road isn't getting fixed, is that?
That's correct.
Not at this time, yes.
So there's a flume down at this end,
That's not being
and that's
touched.
not even gonna be touched?
Not at this point. There's
No.
going to be a subsequent application to address that. So that is proposed to be repaired, but that's not part of this particular project.
Okay, and the scope of that doesn't impact this? So they're just, and are they fixing the dam?
When they lift it off, if things need to be, mortar needs to be put in or whatever needs to be done, they're going to look at that. But-
The dam as a whole is not being repaired as part of this project, if that's what your question was.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not part of this project.
Think about it as the area above the dam.
So that's the worst end of the road?
Yes, it's to
Proposed?
restore and reopen the road,
Okay.
yes.
And so do they feel like this section of the road is pretty solid? They don't have to do anything else here until the scope of this work is done?
Yes, I believe so. I'm not the engineer, I'm an environmental consultant, but that was what was conveyed to me,
Yeah.
this is the area that they were going to repair, basically, the bridge, so that it's a replacement project, and they're making betterments with the sidewalk, and that is what the focus was, only to that point. It's going to be graded, it's going to be ground down, it's going to be resurfaced in that area.
Handicap walkway here, but
No, we continue, there is a walkway already that exists
Yes.
along that fence area all the way down to your store. So that's not going to be modified in any way. They're just going to repair the area over the bridge, over the water. The rest is on solid ground as opposed to water flowing underneath it. So this is the area of concern, and that's why the road was stopped, was closed. No, that is right, it's that bridge. You got it.
Yes, it was a safety issue, so yes, they're not going to touch this yet.
yeah,
It'll be down here where they're going to touch this area. Okay?
awesome.
And I think as far as the pavement goes, ultimately, the whole thing will be done.
Yeah.
It's just not done as part of this
Yes.
particular project
Okay,
right
so
now.
they're thinking like 3 stages,
Something like that.
in
yeah.
theory?
Whatever happens, we're still waiting to hear about the dam, so.
This is
Right.
part of a grant, and this portion is available, and they're
That was my next
utilizing this, so
question.
that's how
Yeah.
that's working.
So they'll do this part and then...
We'll see where we go from there.
Yes.
Yeah,
Thanks, Sandy.
yeah. Thank you. Anybody else to comment on this particular project? I'm seeing none. I'll take a motion to close the hearing. I have a motion. I have a second. All in favor? Opposed, abstained, the hearing's closed.
Thank you.
What? Next. I need a motion for the order of conditions with the stipulations of the time of the year for
The
the,
time of the year for the fish.
and that if the grant wall support needs more work, they've got to come back to us. You want to continue? Is that the motion?
That's fine.
I have a motion. I heard a second. All in favor? Aye. Abstain, opposed, abstain, passes. And see Mr. Bichette before you start anything. Yay. Okay. We're waiting for the paperwork to go around. Mr. Smith, the next one, please.
A notice of public hearing pursuant to the provisions of the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Wareham Wetland Protected Bylaw, Division 6. A public hearing will be held in Room 320, Wareham Multi-Service Center, 48 Marion Road, Wareham, Massachusetts, on Wednesday, February 20th, 2019, at 7:50 p.m.
Please come forward, sorry, I thought you were
A
done.
notice of intent for Karen Shea, GIF Engineering, 266 Main Street, Wareham, Massachusetts, to upgrade on-site sewage disposal system for two dwellings located on Assessors Map 5, Lot 1024, 12 Shanley Way, Buzzards Bay, Massachusetts.
Thank you. Now you're done.
I'm Bill Madden from GAF Engineering, here on behalf of Karen Shea.
Thank you. Mr. Pichette will read to the project. We were down there. We visited the site.
The project site is at 12 Shanley Way in Onset, and the project involves upgrading a septic system and reconstructing a dwelling in the buffer zone to a coastal bank. Two dwellings exist on this property. Both have cesspools that would be replaced with a new Title V system that will service both dwellings. The new leach field would be up near the road, which is the furthest location from the resource areas on the lot. The new leach field would be approximately 65 feet from the top of the coastal bank. And again, the existing cesspools would be pumped out and then filled in with clean sand. The existing dwelling marked as 12B on the plan is to be demolished, and a new dwelling constructed on the same foundation, which is not to be removed. So there really won't be any earthwork for that, but they are going to tear down the house and rebuild a new one on that foundation. And then there will be a new water line installed. There's no grade changes proposed. Erosion control would be placed around the cesspool areas to be filled in. We do have a DEP file number for the project, so I would recommend the issuance of the order of conditions with the standard conditions and the added condition that if the foundation is deemed not to be adequate, needs to be reconstructed, then an amended order would have to be applied for that work.
Oh, Shanley Way.
Standard, we include the low. Yep, okay. Bill would like to comment on it, please.
I have nothing to add.
Who determines if the new foundation won't work with a new building?
The building inspector.
Okay. So, Joe, that nice old building's gonna be torn down? The one we
on the
thought
left.
had character.
The one on the left-hand side?
Yes.
Yes.
That's too
Any-
bad.
Any questions on the board?
No.
Anybody in the audience for this project? I'm seeing none. Need a motion to close the hearing?
So moved. Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstain. Hearing is closed.
Motion to grant with the stipulation of the foundation, if the foundation has to be replaced, amended order is going to be needed.
I have a motion, I heard a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained? Please see Mr. Bichette before you start the work.
Very good, thank you very much.
Okay,
Notice of public hearing pursuant to the provisions of the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Wareham Wetland Protected Bylaw, Division 6. A public hearing will be held in Room 320, Wareham Multi-Service Center, 48 Marion Road, Wareham, Massachusetts, on Wednesday, February 20, 2019, at 7:15 p.m. On the notice of intent for LDE Holdings LLC, DBA Trade Routes Company, care of GIF Engineering, 266 Main Street, Wareham, Massachusetts, to construct a commercial building addition, reconfiguration of parking areas, and install stormwater management improvements located on Assessors Map 108, Lot 1006-Q1, 6 Thatcher Lane Road,
Continuance.
Wareham, Massachusetts.
now we get the skinny ones. Now we get the small ones.
You got it? He's got the small ones.
Yeah, we share.
You just wait until you're all done struggling with that one.
We'll share.
I have plenty of,
Oh,
brought enough for all.
Thank you.
okay. We have our green cards. Mr. Bichette, the project, please.
Just noticing, Bill, on the site plan, it's dated 2/21. We haven't quite gotten there yet.
Oh, yeah,
It's all right.
tomorrow. That's the filing date with Charlie, I think, tomorrow.
Sorry,
Oh, go ahead.
please identify yourself for the record.
I'm Bill Madden from GAF Engineering on behalf of Trade Routes.
Jesse Pitts from Trade Routes.
Thank you. Mr. Bichette?
The project site is at 6 Thatcher Lane in the industrial park, and the project involves the construction of an addition to a commercial building, parking lot, and stormwater drainage system in the buffer zone to bordering vegetated wetland. A 75 by 110-foot commercial building addition is proposed, approximately 61 feet from the edge of the wetland. The wetland line was checked and there were no changes made to the line. The plan is showing new development within the 50-foot no-activity zone in terms of tree clearing and the construction of the stormwater drainage structures. It's my recommendation that the plan needs to be modified to remove any new development within the 50-foot no-activity zone. The proposed drainage basin should be relocated or use underground infiltration under the parking lot to try to move that out of that area. The fence line for the project should also be located outside the 50-foot no-activity zone, so that is not altered. Charlie Rowley, the town engineer, reviewed the project and had similar comments in his comment letter relative to the work in the 50-foot no-activity zone, and also some concerns relative to the stormwater structures that are proposed. We did get a DEP file number for the project, but at this point I would recommend a continuance of the hearing for a revised plan to address the comments that were raised relative to the work in the 50-foot no-activity zone and other issues that the town engineer has made relative to the project.
David, what structure are you talking about, this pond here?
Yes, that retention pond right there. Ms. Madden, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, I think I have a few things to add. This project is a little unique in a couple of respects in that it's considered relative to stormwater management redevelopment with a portion of new construction as well. And as part of the redevelopment component, you know, we were really looking to get some relief on that 50-foot no activity zone. Your bylaw does provide a provision to reduce or waive the 50-foot zone. 50-foot no activity zone, provided that it's a redevelopment site that's currently paved or altered with other impervious surfaces within the buffer zone. That's clearly the case. I'll show that to you initially. This plan, sheet number 3 of the plans that I gave you, indicates where the jurisdictional limits are with respect to this project. And those limits would be that 100-foot buffer zone. In that 100-foot buffer zone, there's portions, there is some undeveloped land. There is also some paving. There is no stormwater management currently on the site, so all stormwater runs unmitigated from this property into the BVW. So under stormwater management standards, DEP stormwater management standards, you know, that does qualify, the site does qualify as redevelopment, and as part of redevelopment, we are to meet standard number 1, which is no untreated discharge. That's a requirement under stormwater management. And then we're to meet the other stormwater managements to the maximum practicable extent. And that's what we've done in this particular instance. So I think that what we really are seeking is that waiver. We are providing stormwater management to the site that did not exist. And in addition, we're providing some infiltration and aging some of the pavement on the site. For example, on the existing conditions plan, sheet 3, there's 2,650 square feet thereabouts of impervious surface within that 50-foot no activity zone. We're going to remove 1,945 of that. So we are, you know, looking to reduce some of the impervious surfaces that are in that parking lot. We think that's consistent with improving site conditions, which is also another requirement. We need to improve existing conditions over what exists on the site today as part of redevelopment standards with stormwater management. So, you know, we think that that's in keeping with the provisions of redevelopment in your exception for that 50-foot no activity zone. I mean, it's clearly a redevelopment project. So we're looking to remove that pavement initially, and then we will be adding a portion of the structure that's in the 100-foot buffer zone, but it is outside the 50-foot. The fire department is requiring us to provide fire department access and turnaround. We've gone over this with, I believe it was Officer Smith of the fire department, and he's agreed to this little turnout tail in the parking lot that provides, you know, the ability of the fire apparatus to turn around on the site. So that's you know, I think a public safety issue that's being implemented with the plan. Additionally, you know, we call for these areas, these disturbed areas where we're removing the pavement, we call for those to be loaned and seeded, but I would submit tonight that, you know, in the event that the commission is interested and has the appetite of granting that waiver of the 50-foot no activity zone or reducing it, that we would come back with a landscaping plan that would enhance the buffer zone to a degree to a degree higher than just simply loam and seeding, and you know, create a landscape plan that would certainly be buffer zone type material, plant material. The other thing that we're adding is a exfiltrating bioretention cell. And you know, one of Charlie's comments was he had a question on the groundwater elevation. We did play with that a little bit, look at it, modify the design to some degree, and we're able to achieve the 2-foot groundwater separation. One thing that's important to note is with redevelopment and in recharge, we're only required to meet the stormwater regulations to the maximum extent practicable. So I think we've done a little bit better than that. I believe we meet the standards in full for recharge. Recharge for the building roof itself would be through a subsurface structure where we'd be taking our roof runoff and delivering that into the ground. So we'd be enhancing that. So just with respect to stormwater management in the redevelopment requirements, there's quite a few environmental benefits that are resulting from the redevelopment project. I mean, currently, we don't have any groundwater recharge. We have untreated discharge of stormwater from the site directly into the BVW. The other thing that we're doing is, this basin is landscaped pretty significantly. It's got a lot of plant material in the bottom of it. We think it's an attractive feature. Certainly something that would be necessary to enhance the basin. So that's what's occurring in that 50-foot zone. We do show a small emergency spillway, overflow spillway that would discharge in the 100-year storm event. That is reasonably close. It is close to the BVW. It's not disputable, but it is the most suitable place for a discharge from a stormwater management BMP. That's what we thought made a reasonable degree of sense in this particular instance. Charlie did have a comment relative to these rain guardian turrets that we selected as a pre-treatment device prior to allowing our surface water runoff to discharge into the bioretention basin. In that device, Charlie was indicating that it needed to meet mass step or TARP standards. And when we selected that device, we selected it from an EPA website where they approved that particular thing as a pre-treatment device. It does remove coarse sediment, it does remove floatables, it does remove any debris in the stormwater stream. So we think that's again another enhancement to the project. So we do reduce the rate and volume of runoff. We increase groundwater recharge. We did reduce site runoff from what is originally there today, and we are in compliance with TSS removal on it. So even when we look at that, Charlie was calling these turrets a proprietary structure. They truly don't meet the definition of a proprietary structure. And if you read stormwater management, it really leaves it up to the commission to make a determination as to whether or not that pre-treatment device really functions in the way that it's supposed to function. And I can provide you with the shop drawing that they have on it. Really, what it involves is a grate to catch coarse material at the surface, and a filter on the outside of that grate in a small weir. I think that the feature that I like here is that it's unlike a catch basin. It will you will be able to see the debris that's there that requires maintenance. So it's very simple for somebody to say, I need to clean this thing out in order for the basin to function properly. It's not a big task. It's a small 4-foot diameter piece of concrete that does not hold that much material. So we think it's a good thing, but the stormwater regs do give the Conservation Commission an opportunity to weigh in on whether they believe that the product that's being proposed by the applicant in an instance like this does meet the intent of the pre-treatment device, which is simply to remove, coarse sediment, leaves, twigs, sticks, things of that nature. And I think that if you look at a site such as this, where it's a private site controlled by a private company, that device works fairly well in that particular instance. It might not work that well in downtown Wareham. We find a little bit of a different character of debris in the gutter line.
A little too much trash.
Well, I think it's a character of the
Coffee cup,
trash as
yes,
much as
yes.
anything that's kind of troublesome there. But we think it kind of fits the bill quite well in this particular instance. So for those reasons, we're really seeking the waiver or the reduction in that 50-foot no activity zone. I think the environmental benefits that are being provided through this design clearly are significant site improvements over what exists there today and what's been allowed to exist for a number of years. This wetland system that's here, you know, I went through and we looked at the aerial photography from the late 70s right up to, you know, 2017, and it appears that, you know, this area was just excavated sand in the 70s. I mean, that was a sand pit. Right now, the water, the way we see it is the water drains unmitigated and, you know, untreated from another facility further up the road, and that's the water that I think created this wetland. I understand that it doesn't really matter how it was created or what, but, you know, as far as the quality of that wetland, it's not a high quality wetland, but nevertheless, it is a protectable resource area. And we think that we've done a pretty good job in designing enough environmental benefit into the project to warrant the granting of the waiver or some relief of that 50-foot zone. So, you know, it seems to me that if you do go to your regs and look at those exceptions, it does state, I'll just repeat it one time, redevelopment of sites that are currently paved or altered with other impervious surface within the buffer zone, and projects involving work necessary to access buildable uplands, and it says including access roads, driveways, and utilities. That's implying that it's really a little bit more than simply the access road when they bring that word utilities into things, provided there's no other means of accessing the site. You know, we can't access the site from any way other than this, at least from an economic point of view. It makes sense. We have an existing driveway. There's no ability to get into the site on the east side. So we think that we meet some of those requirements for granting of that waiver. And I think that's pretty much where we are. Our limit of work is that 100-foot buffer zone. So there's quite a bit going on. I understand, you know, the purpose behind the 50-foot no activity zone in commercial sites. But I think in this instance where we do have redevelopment, and there are many elements of redevelopment that point to the need of providing environmental benefit to a site, might weigh in favor of us in that request. So that's kind of where I am with it. It's important to us to know how the commission feels on that 50-foot element, because we do have to make the revisions for the plans, submit the plans to Charlie. If the 50-foot waiver is not granted, or some relief is not granted, then, you know, we will have to revise the plans. And quite frankly, the opportunity to build this and derive the tax revenue to the town, if it isn't granted, is not likely to remain in town.
Well, obviously, the tax revenue is not an issue with this commission, so we don't need to hear about that. If I could comment, Madam Chair.
Yes, please.
Relative to the 50-foot no activity zone and any exemptions for that, I don't think those apply to this case. There's a reference to if there's already impervious or altered area within the 50-foot, then you can reutilize that within the 50-foot. It doesn't mean that if you have some impervious area within the 50-foot that you can then alter previously unaltered area within the 50-foot. That doesn't make any sense. So I would disagree with the comment and say that the commission should stick to the 50-foot no activity in the areas that are not currently altered. Obviously, there's some pavement within the 50-foot, and again, they have the right to reutilize that because that's already altered area. To me, this is a case of trying, again, to jam too much onto a site than what's really warranted for the site. All the stormwater improvements can be made to the site as described, but they just need to be scaled away from the area. Other things may need to be reduced or remodified, but that's my viewpoint on this. It's not a case where they don't have other alternatives. And the commission shouldn't grant a waiver in cases like this, because then you're defeating the purpose of having the bylaw.
Okay. What was Mr. Rowley's comments on it? He didn't like the turret, the rain guardian,
But he didn't have, in fairness to him, he was not given the EPA data on that or the cut sheet. So that needs to be given to him. And there's also a provision in the stormwater handbook that speaks directly to a conservation commission and how, you would be the people that would have the jurisdiction over something like that.
Okay.
And I think that it allows you the opportunity to evaluate it and make a determination as, is it an effective pretreatment device? Does it work to the degree that it needs to for that stormwater BMP?
the fencing, show me where the line of the fencing is going to go.
The security fencing?
Yes. Because that's on the outside, right?
The security fencing is on the outside. There's a gate. We're gonna come right here off the corner of the building.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna run down the sidewalk. There'll be a gate over here. We're gonna wrap back around the side of the building, around this area here, back, and then come to along the east side, and then tie back into the building.
That area, that's the rectangle, is the turnaround requested by the fire department? Or this is?
This is right here, and it represents 520 feet of.
But that triangle, that no, up a little further, that exists already.
Correct.
So it's already there.
Right, but it's proposed to be removed for this project.
But right now, it is hard top.
Right.
Okay. The drainage area you're proposing, how much of that currently is hard topped?
If we go to that sheet number 3, I believe. You'll see that this shaded area right here indicates that it's 1,530 feet of pavement that's being removed and replaced with that stormwater management BMP.
So that's part of that stormwater management area is currently paved.
Yes.
How much? 50%?
Oh, I think,
And that pavement area is already within the 50-foot zone.
correct.
Right, so that's what I'm saying. The areas that are already within the 50-foot that are paved, they could reutilize because they're already altered. But
So
they
they're-
shouldn't be expanding that any
So
further.
you plan to that slashed area, plan to be expanding that in order to, a little further down, the funny-shaped one. You plan to expand that into, right now, land.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Now, questions from the board?
I don't understand. That's for the fire trucks, right?
No,
Right here?
no.
The fire truck turnaround is shown on sheet number 4. This is it right here.
Next page.
And you can see where the turnout,
Right here?
where the previous area that Sandy was talking about, that's kind of
This is paved today.
bounded by the erosion control fence.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, this is the back of the building, okay.
Questions?
That was just about the 50-foot issue.
Joe?
Not at this time.
Kenny?
No. We know how I am with wiggle room, but the thing is, my opinion, you're gonna have a lot of asphalt, it's gonna be removed, and it's gonna be made drainage, sediment area.
Then we need to handle that runoff.
Yeah. And that'll handle, that's an improvement of what's there now,
Well, part of it.
yeah.
Wow. The drainage off of this new, what is it, 75 by 110 new building?
Yes.
That will all be covered under this underground contractor chambers? All the rain off from the top of the what about the existing building? How will that,
However it's handled right now, we did not, I think most of the downspouts spill at grade. And if you look at the topography on the exterior side of the building, there's a small swale. It appears to be a swale here, so I think some of the runoff
Okay.
actually runs in this. It actually runs like this off the site.
So it'd be heading for that retention pond, right, actually?
In our grading, if we look at what we did on the grading, we're taking all of our sheet flow, and you can see with 37, 36, 35, we're sheet flowing it all to those turrets in our spot grade. So we're trying to take our water down here, put it into that rain garden, and let the water run around here, and then discharge. I think it's just half of the roof going into there to meet our, so that we can meet our groundwater recharge requirement. We don't meet it to the maximum practical degree, we meet it to the standard of the stormwater management regulations.
the placement of that rain garden is at the lowest point of that particular site that we're looking at?
Well, like for a
One of the lowest.
for a low impact development standard, you would try to mimic the hydrology on the site, and that's what we did through the site gradings, mimic that hydrology, respect that low spot, put our drainage into it, and let it continue on its way.
There is the ability also to do additional underground subsurface stormwater remediation as well. So, you know, again, there are alternatives to what's being proposed to further alter that area even more than what it is.
I think what you have to also look at with respect to the stormwater management, there's certain, you know, we got a pretty good toolbox. We have a lot of things in it that we can use. And I think that what you really have to look at is what is the best tool to mitigate peak rates of runoff and peak volumes. And underground infiltration doesn't always fill that bill according to the handbook. It depends on how much weight we want to place on the handbook. Most of it's pretty good. There are a few little things in it, but you know, it's not always the solve all for it. You know, we still need treatment of that stormwater, that surface water runoff, and we can't get that treatment and maintain groundwater separation going to subsurface structures in this element, you know, so it's difficult, and I think that, you know.
Yeah, it is a difficult site, especially given how it's looking to be maximized in terms of construction. So, given the issue of the 50-foot, I would recommend to the board that some effort be made to show some alternatives versus just looking at what's in front of us at this point, because I think that can be, there are other options that haven't been explored or shown to the commission at this point.
But I think that in the bylaw, it says provided no other means of accessing. And I think if we just look at this plan, we don't need to, you know, go to the expense of creating alternative driveways. You know, what are we gonna do? Show you a driveway coming up here?
You got the room over there.
Well, I'm just saying that.
No, it's that provision that you're speaking of only references if you're trying to access property that you have no other way to get to it except crossing a wetland. That's what that provision is for.
Well, that's not what it says. It says pretty clearly, projects involving work necessary to access. It
You're only
doesn't say
reading-
access through undisturbed land. It says.
Right, but I don't think you're reading the whole thing either.
Well, I
You're
think I
reading-
did. I think I read it pretty significantly for 2 days.
Yeah.
But in any event, I mean, that's, you know, that's where we're coming from on it. We think that there's significant environmental benefit that's resulting from this project that that might warrant the commission to grant us some relief in it, in that 50-foot. And, you know, I would leave that up to you folks to decide.
I was worried when I first went there and looked around, but I hadn't seen the plan. The plan puts a little different spin on how I'm thinking. It is an improvement. That whole area was a big sand pit when they made 195. I remember that when I was a kid. It's all sand. I don't know. It's a tough spot, but we'll see what the rest of the board thinks.
Anything else?
Mention the square footage of what's being utilized now in the 50-foot zone versus what's the difference? You,
Ask the question again.
Bill?
Did you mention?
I'm
the-
sorry?
Did you mention the difference between the square footage being utilized now within the 50-foot zone versus what will be? If you did, I lost it somewhere.
On pavement, I think that,
Just, you know, I see the, you know, what is there now versus what you'd like, and I know there's a difference between the amount of usage within the 50
Yes.
foot. I was just wondering how much of a difference it was.
it's 520 square feet of impervious surface in that 50-foot no-activity zone
Now?
under our design.
Okay, and what's
In
there
prior,
now?
in prior to that, there was, I believe it was 2,000, it was 2,650.
Okay, so that is the impervious amount, and then the general utilization, is there a?
Well, I was only looking at what is jurisdictional. You know, when I did those calcs, I didn't, it's in the drainage calc, our entire impervious area. But just more to the point though, it's, you know,
There's already one right over here.
yeah, we're removing 1,945 square feet of pavement from that 50-foot no-activity zone,
Okay,
under existing conditions,
and then you're replacing,
with 540 square feet of impervious, so we're reducing it by, what, factor of 5, something along those lines. Here's some photographs also of what the site looked like from 1966 on, if you just want to look at those.
I see as an important.
Jesse, do you have anything to add?
Not at this moment, no.
Could I comment?
Yes, please.
On the provision that talks about one of the exemptions in order to access buildable upland, well, you have access to the buildable upland. The driveway is existing there, you drive right around and you're there. You don't need any further alteration of that 50-foot no-activity zone, you already have access to it. That provision is only in place in case you have a situation where you cannot get to an area of buildable upland without getting into the no-activity zone. You already have access, so you don't need any alteration of it.
Well, I think that really, you know, I respect your opinion on that, but I don't, you know, I don't think the words really say it in quite that way.
That is what it says. It says exactly that.
I think that if we, well, if we wanted to just debate it for a second, I would think that if we wanted to talk about a site that was not developed, that's what should be stated. It doesn't say that, it doesn't say that in there.
They're not talking about adding an access road.
No, but he's trying to make the point that he wants to use one of the exemptions because he doesn't have access to an area, which they already have access to.
Okay. Question I have is that how many additional square feet within the 50-foot no-work zone is being impacted by your existing rain garden?
How many square feet is the rain garden?
No, so that rain garden is over already existing paved road, paved park.
Portion of it is,
Okay.
yes.
The portion that is not over existing pavement is how many square feet? So I'm trying to figure out how many feet are you trying to disturb in the no-work zone in order to put in the existing plan rain garden?
In addition.
No,
Addition.
whatever.
I know, I can see what you're.
Whatever is going on top of existing pavement has already been disturbed, and therefore, doing something over that pavement, under that, or removing the pavement and working there, is not an additional work to a no-work zone. I'm just trying to figure out how much new area is going to be disturbed with the plan rain garden within the 50-foot. Yeah.
I don't know, it's a few hundred square feet.
fence,
this
the
should
fence
be-
is a good thing, because
Right,
they,
but then you cut this back a little bit, you put it on 50, and they're all set. That's what they should be doing.
The fencing, except for one, the fencing is well within the 50-foot, right?
Yes,
And it is, you need it for security because of
Correct.
what the purpose of the building will be,
it's according to what the state regulations require,
because of what's going to be in the
the
building.
use of the building, yes.
Well, Mr. Pichette said it maybe reduce the size of the building by enough in order to keep the fence within the 50-foot, outside the 50-foot. How much area do you need between the fence and the side of the building? Page 5.
you gotta have enough room to get a fire truck around.
If I take a look at where you plan to do the fencing and where the building is, how wide, is that a driveway?
No, that is part of the restored, that's part of the restored area. That's the area that I spoke about if we, if we were to plant that buffer, that area with something other than loam and seed.
So I don't need that distance between the building and the fence.
Well, you have to build the building and the equipment that's necessary to get in there to build the building, you're gonna need at least 10 or 15 feet. And I think right now, if I was to scale that off, we're looking at, I don't know, looking at about 18 feet to where the bubble of the tree line is shown from the side of the building.
Yep.
I mean, you don't want trees growing right up against the side of the building, and the fire department will want access around the building as well. On foot or what have you, not by vehicles.
Okay. Board, what would you like to do? I need
I
some
don't have a
direction
problem.
here.
I don't have a problem with it, that's my opinion.
Want to look for some alternative to try to reduce the footprint of the additional work within the 50-foot? Maybe redesign that rain garden to make it deeper in order to accommodate the,
I'm actually
sorry.
always against the entrance of the 50-foot, and I know that it's hard because we're actually gaining some
Yes, we are.
and then losing some somewhere else, and I know that's a bad thing, because you don't want to lose original ground to that, but is there a little wiggle room on that, on any of this? I mean,
The building size is a prefab building, so it's, if you shrink that building, you're gonna have to shrink it dramatically, and it's just not worth building there at that point.
okay. How about the,
I mean, one of the things that they did,
can you change the shape of this? Is it, I mean, is it the turnaround, which, I'm a little lost as to which the new, the new disturbance place is going to be versus what we get back, essentially. Do you see what I'm saying?
Were you talking about making the shape of the retention pond a
Yeah, the
little different?
retention
No.
pond there, is that,
Yeah.
I mean,
the depth is, we're not able
Can't
to,
go down.
we can't
Can't go
deepen
down.
it because of the groundwater, separation of groundwater, so we're tight there. That was one of the things that Charlie brought up. We did add a tree in the island, and, because we did have excess parking. We had about 5 extra parking spaces, so this revision that we made since the original one resulted in the loss of about 4 or 5 spaces. So now we have 31 spaces. I think we're required to have, it's on the cover sheet. I guess it says we have 15 required, but we have 31, and 15 is for we have 15 spaces for staff and about 15 or 16 for customers. And that whole parking, how that whole parking issue is, went, down the street, and what we did is, we proposed to have, it was one of these things, is, are they gonna require us to put a drive-through here or a drop-off area in the front? We put a drop-off area there just because we felt that that's something we may be asked to do. So it was kind of a,
Well,
so anyway, we did add we broke up that parking space. That was one of Charlie's comments. So we have a tree there. We have 15 employee parking spaces, and we have 14 customer spaces and 2 handicap for the 31.
well, if you were to relocate, I'd love the idea of doing a better job of treating the runoff.
That's what they're
But
requiring.
I am concerned about the impact of going into the 50-foot no-work zone. Is there any alternative, maybe moving the fence back a little bit and making that retention area more in line with what is existing pavement? Changing the design of it to make it longer and narrower over the existing hardtop. But moving where the fence, where your gate is. Your gate seems to be on one end, the turnaround for the fire trucks on the other end, the wetlands is on the third end, and the parking area is on the fourth, so you really are confined to where you can put it. You need it, but we're looking for something that is not within the 50-foot, maybe something that's over the existing paved area. Did that make sense?
I know, let's look at where that 50-foot line is. I mean, if we're looking at that 50-foot line, that means everything over here goes in this, within this.
Unless it's already paved. You've got a lot of paved area there.
But we need it.
Well, that's what I'm getting at. It's nice to want everything you want, but some sites aren't suitable for what you're proposing, and that's the case here. You have restrictions, you're proposing a certain building type, which can't be modified. Well, that's because you chose that building type. So the commission is reviewing things in regards to what the wetland regs are, not what the applicant might wish to have in the certain type of construction that they would want. So this is what the commission is here to look at, and I think at this point, I would recommend a continuance just to try to see what can be done with it versus just trying to hash it out now, because there's too many variables.
It's,
Quite honestly, I don't know what we can do and meet everybody else's standards at this point. We've already revised the plan. We know what we had. We know what we had to work with on day one with that 50 foot, and there's not much we can do with that. We thought that by providing as much environmental benefit that we could, and by reducing the amount of impervious area in that 50-foot no activity zone to the maximum degree that we could, and then we were down to 500 square feet from 2,500, that might mean something. And I just, I think that, we need to move forward with things. And, I would just, I think that Jesse, if I can speak for him, would just poll the board. If you want to grant us the waiver on the 50 feet, fine. If you don't, then it's major change, and that's kind of that. We think we have a good project. We think that we have a legitimate reason to ask for the waiver, else we wouldn't be here asking.
I'm going to ask the board. Rob, I'm going to start with you.
Well, if I could make one.
I'm hesitant
No,
on
wait
it.
a second.
I'm
Mr.
hesitant
Bishop.
on a couple of things.
Yeah.
Some of it is just totally my inexperience. And I'm not entirely convinced that I know what we're getting versus what we're giving up, and what that's worth. My other problems is I hear that apparently another board has, or other people have some issues. I have a problem with granting anything past the 50, because like anything, once you give in somewhere, everybody's knocking at your door because they want it too. I haven't been on the site. I suppose that might help me. And then, I don't know enough about engineering to know if what, say, David mentioned, and you had argued a little about under the pavement relief versus this pond relief, can you do a little more of the pavement and a little less of the pond, and thus give us a little less to argue about? I don't know if that's even possible, because I'm not an engineer. But that's kind of where I sit. I'm battling with practicality, in which case it's like, great, we get a lot less tar. You've made some great improvements. We like all of that. And I don't like doing anything past the 50-foot and granting any kind of waivers, because it does tend to open up floodgates. So that's kind of where I sit, and I don't know which way to fall. I don't know what that means to the board, if that means a little more time, or I go down and look at this, or I just,
Mr. Smith?
that's where I am.
Oh, I'm probably as confused as he is.
I don't have a problem.
Okay, Joe?
Not an easy one. Bill, would it be too much trouble for you to actually, even whether you use flags or where you got pavement there, is there any way of marking that even with paint? For me to go down and take another visit?
We can mark things out with paint.
Yeah, if you could do the 50-foot, and then basically, right where the retention pond's gonna go, do that in a different color.
Yep.
And then I can weigh in, because basically, I always like to do a weighing in of basically how much we're gonna net gain on, like asphalt or something like that, you know?
Okay.
If you could do that,
Yeah, okay.
I can get down there before the next meeting.
All right, then I'm hearing a continuous coming. Is there anybody in the audience who want to speak to for or against this project? I'm seeing none, but I would like the idea of you marking where the 50-foot is, and then marking where this retention and the fencing will be going inside the 50-foot. Give us, a start and end point for the fencing that will be in the no-work area. Is that all right with everybody?
Yes.
And I'd like to take a motion to continue.
I'd like to do that. If
Have
that
a
would
motion
it
to
be?
continue?
Yeah, we'll do that. I just think, just to summarize on this, on that 50-foot, if you can just envision, if we have to get outside the 50-foot, we have to take everything that's in it and fit it between this 50-foot and the 100-foot. So now our limit of work line really becomes that 100-foot buffer zone.
That's true, that's not quite true, I believe.
Yeah.
Well, it's
Because
just-
you already have stuff in the
Right.
50 that you
I
get to utilize.
understand, I'm just talking,
So that's
Yeah.
too much of a generalization.
We need
All
to,
right.
we need to visualize the two components of it, the 50-foot and then the outline of the retention area and the beginning and ending of the fencing within the 50-foot.
okay, we can do that.
So I have a motion to continue till next meeting, which is the 6th of March.
Second.
I have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstain. We are continued until the 6th of March.
When would you like to have that done by? I mean, there's a little snow on the ground now, do you have an idea?
isn't there
Like you
another
usually do your things on Saturday or
We've got-
Sunday, right?
We've got 2 weeks before the next hearing. I would tend to think,
I'll coordinate with Dave.
yeah, sometime when it's not going to snow or rain and wash away all your chalk marks.
No, that's fine, we'll do that. Yep,
Thank you.
Thank you.
okay, thanks very much.
All right, I think we're down to 1.
Is that it?
No, we have one more.
I don't know why I thought that was gonna be continued on March 20th.
No, 6th is the next one. Yeah.
No, there's a piece of paper for, that same
Okay.
morning.
Okay,
See you later.
we go.
Yes.
Notice the public hearing. pursuant to the provisions of the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Wareham Wetland Protected Bylaw, Division 6. A public hearing will be held in room 320, Wareham Multi-Service Center, 48 Marion Road, Wareham, on Wednesday, February 20th, 2019, at 7:15 PM. On the notice of intent for Paul Feeney, care of Outback Engineering, 165 East Grove Street, Middleborough, Massachusetts, to construct a patio, gravel driveway with retaining walls and landscape improvements located on Assessors Map 22, Lot L2, 55 Burgess Point Road, Wareham, Massachusetts.
Yes, thank you. Please come forward, identify yourself.
Jeff Youngquist from Outback Engineering.
Okay, you've given Mr. Bichette all the green cards, and Mr. Bichette will now speak to the project.
The project site is at 55 Burgess Point Road, and this application is in response to a violation that occurred at this location involving some significant landscaping activities within a coastal flood zone and within the buffer zone to salt marsh. The application is to address the work that had started and the additional proposed work, which involves expanding the driveway, construction of retaining walls, a patio, and landscaping partially within the coastal flood zone, AE elevation 16, and partially within a velocity flood zone. There's a stone retaining wall that's already been constructed and some crushed stone that's been placed on part of the driveway. The new driveway layout is shown on the plan. There are also a couple of other smaller block retaining walls proposed. And there's a 16 by 32 foot patio proposed as shown on the plan. The lower southeast corner of the lot has had some fill material placed there already. There was a low point apparently where some stumps were removed, but I would recommend that that low spot only be filled to the level of the existing ground and not higher than that to displace water onto the neighbor's property. We did get a DEP file number for the project, so I would recommend the issuance of the order of conditions with the standard conditions and the added condition about the depression in the lower southeast corner of the lot only be filled to the existing grade and that the driveway remain a pervious material.
You got that, bud? I'm brain dead.
No, you're doing it.
Depression in the southeast corner only be filled to grade level?
Right.
I am
I
brain
think
No
they've got
higher.
a little more than that at this point.
And that the then the driveway remains pervious.
Right.
Jeff, you want to speak to, any comments on it?
No, Dave, pretty well covered. I brought some pictures if you want to see what it looks like, but if you've been out there.
We did issue a $300 fine for work, starting work before approved?
Yes.
Okay.
If you'd like to see the pictures of it,
Well, please pass them.
Okay.
I did have a chance to go out there while the workers were working on one of the stone walls.
Yes.
And
Oh, big ones.
Thank you.
because when I was out there, I found a whole bunch of cleared land and tree trunks, tree stumps.
Thank you.
Nice wall. Mhm. I think you can have that one, that one back.
But that's the way it actually ends on the other,
Mm-hmm,
the end of it. You've seen it.
yes.
It's not a very tall.
No, but it already exists.
Yes,
Yeah.
it does.
So, that work would have been, should have come before us before it was started. But any questions on the board?
No.
No, I don't.
No questions.
Anybody in the audience for this particular project? Seeing none. The comments were that Order conditions, you may have it loamed and seeded, but no low nitrogen fertilizer, which is in the standard order of conditions. Okay, someone wants some, close the hearing?
Close.
I have a motion to close the hearing.
Second.
I have a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, the hearing is closed.
Motion to approve, with the stipulations that the agent stated, of the driveway elevation and the previous driveway,
And the southwest corner,
and
This corner right here
The
is where-
southeast corner
there.
southeast corner,
is made
not to
level.
be right.
made level. Okay.
Second?
I have a motion, I have a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained? Please see Mr. Bichette before you start any additional work. But it's a nice stone wall.
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you.
Is a motion in order?
Madam Chairman? Anything else, Mr. Bichette?
I don't have anything else.
I think a motion's in order.
Motion to adjourn?
I have a motion.
Second.
I have a second. All in favor? Aye.
Yeah.
We are closed at 8:45. Thank you, audience.